Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Adobe ColdFusion evangelist Mark Takata, and we're talking about all the new features in Adobe ColdFusion 2023. There were so many, we had to split this episode into two parts. Last time we looked at containerization and Google Cloud Platform additions to ColdFusion, along with all the other cloud platforms, GraphQL support and why that's important, JSON web tokens. So lots of technical detail in there. Today, we're going to be looking at enhanced HTML to PDF conversion, new PDF engine and library updates, central configuration server, single sign-on, performance enhancements, security enhancements, other library updates, and all kinds of other bug fixes and improvements. Also, we're going to talk about the annual release cycle that ColdFusion has moved to and the Adobe ColdFusion 2024 beta. So onwards to the interview.
ColdFusion Alive, the podcast for the ColdFusion community. Discover practices, tools, techniques, tips, and trends for modern ColdFusion development. Brought to you by TerraTech, the ColdFusion experts. Develop, secure, optimize. Here is your host, the founder of TerraTech, Michaela Light.
So I think we should move on to PDFs because a lot of enterprises, need to produce PDFs, either reports or, other cute PDF stuff. And there's two major enhancements here. First of all, how you can create pixel perfect PDFs, which sounds very sexy, particularly if you're producing things like tax forms or other forms that must be absolutely perfect. And then I think you did some under the hood stuff too. So tell us about what you've got this HTML to PDF conversion feature.
Right. So in fact, all of those things are all coming from the same location, which is the new engine that we put in. The old engine that we had in there was really not brought up to date very much or very often over the years. It had gotten a little bit long in the tooth. It still worked fine for the things that it did, but things like HTML, CSS, they kind of moved on without it. And so it didn't support things like, CSS Grid or Flexbox or all of these new features that allow you to really position things exactly the way that you want them. So to make these pixel perfect pages, say that 3 times fast, you needed to do all sorts of stupid web tricks, right? And it was frustrating and annoying. And I was one of those people. I made so many reports, I lost track years and years ago. And, you had to do these silly little things like add a pixel here and then widen the pixel to make it so that this line lined up, right? It was just annoying. And to be fair, every reporting system on the planet that I've ever used has this problem. So this was not necessarily anything new, but, we felt that we could do better. So this new engine improves all of those things. So now when you output something, it looks the same in the PDF as it looks on your screen in the browser. Pixel perfect. Oh, I don't hear you.
I muted myself. I was shocked. I was so shocked that I had to mute myself. No, but that's great that it can look the same in the browser as in the PDF, right? And that makes creating PDFs so much easier because and all your tricks and all your designers to make it look great on the web page. And then
I actually had a really there was a really neat use case that I saw that I had never thought of. And you mentioned tax forms and government forms and things like that, which are super important. I know, most of the government uses ColdFusion. I'm sure everyone knows that, Social Security Administration and NSA, all those guys use it. But this one company was so excited about this feature because the thing that they do is they actually will get invoices. So, people buy stuff from them, they'll get an invoice and the invoice is something went wrong, right? Somebody ordered 20 reams of paper, but the invoice said 21 or whatever. And they had to regenerate the invoice. But because it was they did work with the government, they had to alter the invoice that was coming in, or something along those lines. It needed to be exactly the same as the invoice because they had it recorded and then they were going to add this as a new version and it had to match up. So they were able to use this engine to generate an identical, pixel perfect copy of the old version with just the change that they needed, the number on the invoice or the price or whatever. And it worked seamlessly out of the box first time. And they were just blown away. I mean, like they had been waiting for this forever. They'd tried like other external PDF generators and no one else was quite able to do it this way. But here it's a tag. It's HTML to PDF. You create your HTML the way you want it to look. Boom, it outputs to what you need. So yeah, that's a really big deal. It also added a bunch of support for things like you can embed audio and video. That's new and really cool. It doesn't work if you print it though. Just
no.
I tried really hard to get it to do that, but and it also supports SVG, which, as you might know, SVG is scalable vector graphics, and that allows you to have like things like logos or photographs or pictures or architectural diagrams or whatever, and you can scale them to nearly any size. And they're used by a lot of people in a lot of different industries, and we just have not had any kind of support for them at all. Now we do. And again, it's about pixel perfection, right? Like, because those are, if you're familiar with vector graphics, they don't have pixels. They describe the size of the lines, the width of the lines, the alignment of the lines to each other, all of that. So you can scale it to the size of a building or, the size of something you'd print on a pen, and it should still work across both of them. So those are,
and you still have all the old tags for manipulating PDFs, merging different files into one PDF or PDF forms, or
so we still support DDX. We still support, and that's actually a really important thing, because that was a question people asked me a lot. Was, well, wait a minute, is this going to break all of my code? Does it still support it? All that. Yes, it still supports all of the old tags. We didn't actually change the functionality of the tags. Now, it might look different if you were doing stupid web tricks to make things align. You may not need those anymore. You may need to refactor back to just the basic HTML that you would want to describe your page. However, if you want to upgrade to 2023 and maybe do the work later, you can actually choose the old engine inside of the administrator if you want to, and still have so it's not going to just immediately break all of your stuff and make your boss yell at you. You can downgrade the engine, use the old one until you've refactored, like your devs can be running on 2.0. The production server could be on 1.0. And then when you're ready, you can move all the code, pop it into 2.0, and then you're off to the races. The other thing that is not well known about this new upgrade is, you just heard me mention, we didn't change any of the tags. That means we didn't add anything either. And we're using about 50% of the capabilities of this new engine. So we have got a lot of headroom in the future to add and replace things that, maybe are a little bit old, right? People complain about DDX. DDX is the old life cycle engine that allows you to do merging and headers and footers and things like that. So that stuff is a little bit old. Like, it doesn't have the support for like new tags. It doesn't have really support for like CSS and things like that. We're talking about maybe replacing some of that in the future or adding on. We need to figure out how to do it. We don't like breaking old stuff, because
don't break old stuff.
We don't want to break old stuff.
Compatible.
We want to be backwards compatible, but having said that, Lifecycle is a dead product.
Yes, that's true.
It's very old. It's long in the tooth is not even applicable. The tooth is rotted away. It's been so old that nobody else uses it. I think AEM Forms might still use it here or there, but to me, that feels unfair to the customer. I feel like we should be updating them, upgrading them. So my suggestion is, hopefully you'll be able to use the same tags, but just put in the correct CSS. So instead of saying like, bold, true, or whatever the silly CSS3 commands are, or HTML3 commands, you'll be able to actually like send it to a style sheet or whatever and do it that way. I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to get to there and upgrade it. That's sort of my internal plans. That's not saying that it's coming out or anything like that. So, but it's something I would like to see. But having said that, the improvements that got put in are staggeringly awesome. Like, you will not be disappointed at the output and the quality and the clarity of the new engine. So
excellent. And how did the new engine affect anything else, like, the CF search tag with Solr free text search? Or
so the really big thing that it affected was there was some limitations on sizes of files that could be converted. That limitation has gone up by like 100 times or something like that. Like, I forget what the limit was before, but it actually wasn't that big. It was like 100 megs or something. Like, anything above that would overflow some register inside of the old engine. That's how old it was. The new one is like 100 gigs or something. Don't quote me, but it's like, if I saw a document that big and that you were converting it, I would be scared for your server. Because that would be a really
my server's in the cloud. You do not have to be scared.
That's true. You could just turn the dial and then open your wallet.
That's right. That sounds slightly saucy, to be honest. But let's move on to the CF admin. You made us tweaks there, I think, in ColdFusion 2023.
We did. We made somewhat of a small change, but actually a really, really important one. And this one came directly from our customers. So one of the things that people were constantly asking us to do was to add some form of single sign-on to the administrator login, right? So as you might know, in 21, we added the ability to do SAML SSO in your applications, which is great. But the administrator was still kind of old school, right? Like, you would have one password or a couple passwords, and it wasn't really good about maintenance long term for all of your hardworking admin folks. So these are not the people who are necessarily doing the ColdFusion. They're the ones who take care of your servers. They take care of your sign in, your auth, right? So if I'm sure, because you've been in tech for a long time, these people have the very ugly job of, when someone gets fired, going through the password list and removing people from access to their various computer systems. Every time you add a new password list to them, they cry a little bit, because that is one more place that they could forget to, have access. And depending on how that person left, if they have access to your production ColdFusion server, they could do a lot of harm, right? So what this does is it allows you to integrate your ColdFusion administrator access to SSO or LDAP, right? So you could use your SAML integration. So if you have like Okta or whatever, you could use that, or you could use LDAP, including groups, which is a nice little feature. And it lets you very pinpointedly allow access to certain parts of the administrator. That was the really, really big addition here that people love. Because maybe you don't want them to have access to your clusters, right? Or to the update. You don't want, your dev going, hey, this update, I'm going to run it, right? And right, then the whole server like goes down or something. Like, you never know. People might do that. So, but maybe you want them to be able to set data sources for themselves.
Just what I was thinking. Yes.
Right. Like, you could say this group of, devs has access to the data source manager inside of production. So really powerful, like it's like a tiny little feature. It's like a couple of lines in the thing, but the impact that this had on companies was huge. People thank me all the time. They're like, you made my life just easier by letting me just tie this in, because of course you're going to remove them from SAML or LDAP, right? Whatever you're using internally.
I hope you would. Yes.
I hope you would, right? It's part of your process. It's probably automated. HR might even have a button. And when that happens, it just cascades down and removes them out of that. So,
and vice versa, when you want to add new staff, new developers, new DevOps, very easy they've automatically got the permission they need.
Exactly. Especially if you add them to a group, that group automatically gets added in there. And
that's what I was thinking. You'd have a group for developers, a group for DevOps, or whatever groups you need. Now, what about when you've got multiple servers? Is there any additional feature in ColdFusion 2023 when you want to do CF admin on multiple servers? Or
Yeah, so we added a feature, and it's pretty. I'm gonna preface this by saying it's a little bit young. So the idea for this came from a multitude of different sources internally, and it was this idea that it's really hard currently to set up a multiple set of servers from one location. Like you can have clustering, you can have a little bit of control that way, but there wasn't really a way that you could like take the settings on one server and apply them to another easily. Now, if you're Charlie Earhart, you can, you know exactly where that's copied. You can copy it over. You could probably automate that and send some kind of bald eagle to grab it and throw it into the thing. I don't know. He does magic stuff. But for the rest of us, there wasn't really a tool that we had internally that was set up. So we decided to build this thing called CCS, Central Configuration Server. And it runs at the command line, basically, and it allows you to control your servers from a central location. So things like, setting up a server to be either production or development or staging, so that, you can actually like access that variable inside of your code to set it to the correct settings. You can set things like data sources remotely. You can set up like your JVM arguments. You can copy everything from one server to another. But here's the part that I love. There's a back button. There's an undo, which has never really been a thing before. There's an undo. So if you do something and everything blows straight the heck up, you can go, back, no, undo. And it'll undo it back to its previous state. And then it'll start working again. So first time that's been a thing in ColdFusion ever. It's my favorite part of that feature. Now, having said all that, is it super easy to use? Yeah. We need to do a little bit better on the developer experience. That's the feedback that I've gotten from folks. Is it's a little bit hard to get spun up, right? Like to get it running. Once it's running, it's seamless. It works great. All of the features work wonderfully as they should. It's just that initial getting things in place can be a little bit of a bear, similar to like PMT. If you've ever used the performance monitoring tool, like getting it off the ground, we could do a little bit better in the developer experience of getting it set up properly. But once it's running, easy peasy. You just go in there, and see what your servers are doing, and it just kind of runs and does its thing. So it's a neat feature, and I highly recommend people look into it if they are running multiple servers. Like if you've got one production box, probably won't find that much value of it. If you've got multiple staging, multiple production, or even one production, multiple staging, dev boxes, like review boxes, and you want to control them all from one place, it's a godsend. People will love it. So
very cool.
Get detailed show notes on today's episode in your free CF Alive Modern ColdFusion Guide at teratech.com. That is teratech.com. Viva la CF Alive Revolution!
So we've gone through all the major new features, but I think there's some other improvements that were made, which we wouldn't call features. And let's look at a few of those quickly. What about performance? Because I know in past versions there were substantial performance improvements made. How does 2023 compare in performance to 2021 or 2018?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's come up a few times because early on, it's actually, so there were improvements made past shipment. So there were some issues originally when it first came out. It was a little bit slower. We've added a lot of features. And a really big thing that, and maybe you were going to cover this, but I think it's important to talk about here, is 2023 came with a Java update, and it was a really big one. It was actually kind of a headache. Java, so Oracle did a bunch of very, very deep, complex changes to Java 17, and it broke the living heck out of a lot of people's code, including CF. We did a lot of work, a lot of late nights getting stuff running again. Unfortunately, some of those things I mean, all of them were done for security, basically. People had found ways around some of the reflection stuff that was happening. And so they removed a lot of the reflection stuff. It slowed down a lot of stuff because often you use reflection for performance increases. So we had to go back and do some changes and updates to sort of, mitigate some of those changes. And we got it back to about the same speed as 2021. So today you go and grab 23, you update it, you run it, it's going to spin up at about the same speed as 2021, which is actually a good thing because we added a bunch of stuff. It's way more complex. It's more secure. It's using new Java, which technically is slower. So that's actually a win in my book. I'm paid to say that, but still, even just as a
what about if you run it on a different Java engine? This is Oracle 7 Java runtime 17. But what about if you're running on JBoss or some other engine?
Yeah, I can't really speak to that. I mean, it would depend on the engine and probably your code, how much of the stuff that you're that you're leveraging. And to be totally honest, I haven't done that a lot in 23. Certainly in older versions, yes. I've done that. And it all just kind of depends like what your use case is. And of course it also depends on what are you running it on? Or is it in a container? Is it running on like a seriously powerful box up in the cloud? Are you throwing a lot at it? Right. So yeah, there's some questions there. Now, having said all of that, one of the things that we are looking at very, very seriously, and I can't give you any details yet because I definitely don't want to steal my product manager's thunder. She is going to be talking about some of this in DC, and that is performance improvements are they're high on our list to improve going into CF24, which is coming out this year. So that's been something that we have kind of buckled down and said we are going to go back to like speeding things up, because I think we can do it. We're challenging ourselves, even though there's going to be more stuff added, even though it's more complex, we're still on the same Java version. We're gonna do some improvements to performance. So yeah, we're going back. Back in the day, we did that every year, right?
Yeah, exactly. I look forward to hearing about that at CF Summit in Washington, DC, which is what you meant by in DC.
Correct.
Yes, one of your acronyms. And did you guys have a polite or shouty discussion with Oracle about what the heck they were doing, slowing up the apps running on top of their Java runtime engine so that they could
they don't reply to my calls?
Don't they have an evangelist that interfaces to take feedback?
I think they might have thrown that evangelist in a volcano at some point.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully you never go in a volcano.
I try to avoid them as much as possible. And to be totally fair, sometimes things have to be done. Sometimes you just don't have a choice in making changes, like especially when it has to do with security, right?
Absolutely.
It can just be a thing. And every time that we've had to do something to CF because of security, I cringe. I go, we're like reducing the developer experience. We're making it so that it's more irksome to use CF in some way because some person somewhere behind a computer decided that they could do this thing and hack into people's stuff and be a bad actor, right? And then, our users end up suffering from it. So I get it. I get why they did it. And the problem
you need to make these users in Russia or North Korea or wherever they are pay money for the ability to hack
that'd be nice.
People's machines. Yeah, there should be
tie that to my wallet if you're going to do that. If you could just a couple pennies here and there from each one will be fine.
Yeah, there you go. So speaking of security, what got improved in security?
So I mentioned a lot of those additions. So the big one was really SSO, right? We actually, so one thing that was a big deal in 2021 was we removed the ability to see logging information, so logs, because of a security hole actually that was discovered. And that was one of the things that just, broke my heart. Like, I love that feature in CF, and I used it constantly to do my debugging, and we had to remove it because someone found a way to use that. So in 23, because of the way the systems changed, we were able to put that back with the security pieces in place, because now we actually had the ability to lock people out because of the changes to the engine. Unfortunately, we're still figuring out how to do it on 21 without breaking it again or exposing it again. And I don't know if we'll be able to do it, honestly. The attack was a really egregious one. They could do, they did horrible things to that server.
Yes.
So I said, oh, okay, yeah, it turned off. So that was, that's a security improvement in some ways, but it's more of a developer experience improvement related to security. And of course, you can still use SAML SSO. You could still do all of the things that you could in 21. So all those things are still there. We updated a bunch of built-in libraries to the newest version, rid of a lot of those things. And we've had updates to a number of libraries. And there's another update coming here pretty soon, in a month or 2 or 3, something like that, which is going to improve more libraries and improve security more. So we are constantly, every few months, trying to limit the exposure of people. I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, Tomcat has this CVE, this other CVE, this other thing, right? And we're, as much as possible, trying to keep up with those things and improving, updating those libraries, getting them in and working. So we're up to, I think we're up to 9.0.75, 7.3, something like that. Don't quote me. That's like the latest one that is in the current update. The next update, I think, pushes us up another layer and gets rid of other CVEs. So yeah, it's an ongoing process. Unfortunately, it's not 23 improves this thing or that thing. It's like constant vigilance and updates.
Absolutely. No, it's important to keep. I mean, ColdFusion is one of the most secure language platforms out there. So
yeah, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, we did an analysis of CNET's, 0-day and other hacking reports, and ColdFusion had some of the least problems compared to other languages. So keep up the good work with the security. And of course, for many enterprise and government clients, that's critical, because you really don't want your applications hacked and people getting into your data and all kinds of wacko stuff.
It's funny when I talk to these big corps, these giant customers, the things they want are security, stability, backwards compatibility, and reliability. They half the time don't even care about all the sexy new features. Like, oh, we got this, we have this, you have this language feature, we have this. They're like, don't care. Are you? How secure are you? Where are your libraries? How often are you updating? Who do I call when something breaks? So that's it's sort of weird, because the marketing side is always like, sexy new thing, cool shiny bit. Look at the right. But the reality
it's the same thing with buying a car. If you buy one of those, I can't think of the brand that comes from Sweden. That's very safe. Volvo. Yeah, Volvo. If you've got a family and you don't want them to die if there was a car crash, and you want it to be super well built, but that's not a sexy new feature,
right?
And the same thing, do you want to have to repair the car every 5 minutes, or do you want it to be reliable and start up every day, and so forth? So
I literally bought a new Subaru specifically because they're incredibly safe and incredibly reliable.
There you go.
That's why it's not sexy. It's not the fastest thing out there. It's not super awesome off-road or, all electric or run on fusion power, whatever the crazy new thing is. It's old school. It's kind of industrial. It has like a tractor motor in it, but that tractor motor will go for hundreds of thousands of miles and get decent enough miles per gallon where, I don't mind it so much, but it's not
even in California.
Yeah, well, the cost of the gas is still high, but at least I get a little bit more gas per mile, or less gas per mile.
Does Adobe, you mentioned stability was important to Adobe and your customers. Do you have some measure of server stability, how often the server crashes, or is that measured by someone there?
That's a really good question. I don't know that we've actually put the metrics out for that, but that could be a really nice thing to put out, because that's important, uptime. Right. It can be a little, unfortunately, the measure of that has so many variables, right? But I think if we set up sort of this is what a server looks like to us, and this is how much usage it's getting, how much bandwidth it's using, and it's up n number of times, I think we could probably put something like that out. But I will say the stories that I hear about, folks that created really, really high usage utilizations of CF. There was a government organization that needed to put up an app in just a few weeks, and it was for the entire United States. It was tracking information across all of the population. They ran it on one ColdFusion server for a year, 0 downtime.
Wow.
And I mean, the code was brilliant and super efficient and nicely done, and it was running on a monster server, right? So they gave it the horsepower it needed, but it didn't need updating. It didn't need rebooting. It didn't have memory leaks. It was just like stone reliable all the way through. And they were impressed with it. I mean, they continued to do work inside of CF after that. It was not, so they were not a CF shop before this. They literally became one because they were given a 3-week deadline to ship this, and no one else would say yes except a guy in the back of the room that knew CF and said, I could do it in CF, but you need to buy me a license. And so they reached out. That's how we know about it. They reached out and they did it. I can't do details because
no, it's okay.
The actual thing is a little bit hush hush. But when I hear this story, it's just like, this is what CF really is. It's this really reliable, secure, super fast to develop in application.
Runs fast too.
And it's fast. It can be screamingly fast. Yeah.
Well,
if you want it faster, just throw more hardware at it.
Yes. Well, we have an episode, and I'll dig it up and stick it in the show notes, with Brad Wood, where he compared CF to various other languages in real world situations, not a hello world program one line, but like doing database access and all the other stuff. And CF actually came out, I think it was either first or second in speed. And some languages are really slow, when you put real load on them for a real app. So, take a pat on the back.
I mean, not to unload on a particular language, but I hear a lot of folks moving to like Node, right? And let me tell you, I'm going to get like thrown out a window for this probably. Like an identical Node app and a ColdFusion app, the ColdFusion app will kick the Node's butt, like left and right, because it is single threaded. And if you do not know how to use things like workers and stuff, like it will get blocked and will run very slowly. And it's a problem because JavaScript is single threaded. At the end of the day, ColdFusion is not. It's multi-threaded. So if you've got the CPU to handle all of those threads and you code correctly, it's so much faster. And that's just one thing people don't think about when they're moving over. They're like, oh, it's just, it's Node. JavaScript's super easy. I'm like, yeah, but have you thought about performance? You've got 30,000 people trying to hit it in 5 minutes. You're going to blow your server up. It's just going to die, So anyway.
Well, I think the important point is here that comes straight out of the box. You don't need to mess around, tweaking around with ColdFusion to get it to support that. It just deals with it, and it's dealing with all the memory being cleaned up, and
garbage collection is all built in. You've got the JVM doing that for you.
Right. So I think people forget this, that's under the hood. It's doing sophisticated things to do the multi-threading and having things run well and efficiently, and even just talking to the SQL database efficiently is another thing, it's done well. So now, were there any bug fixes in Adobe ColdFusion 2023? Or
I think there were several hundred. I don't think
several hundred. I'm impressed.
Yeah. There were several hundred. Where I think we're clocking. I don't remember what it was, but it's like 6,000 of them for the next version. Yeah, our engineers have been absolutely on fire the last 6 months. Like, I don't know what they're feeding these boys, but they are just rocking stuff out. You should have seen, we had a big bug bash over the winter holiday, and these guys were just I mean, steamrolling through Jira. It was amazing. I was like, I'm like, did you guys sleep? What's going on? Like, it was amazing. So yeah, lots of bugs fixed, several hundred, and more to come. And more bugs get fixed when updates come also. That's another thing. So when it shipped, there were a lot of them fixed. Every update that's come out, there's been at least some bugs fixed. Some are security updates, obviously. So
yes.
I don't know if you want to call that.
Is there a public bug database people can see what bugs have been fixed or can report bugs, or how does that work?
So there's something called Tracker. So tracker.adobe.com is a place where you can report bugs, and there are bugs listed for Adobe ColdFusion there. When you want to check what bugs were fixed, you actually have to go to the update page on our HelpX for the particular update. So if you go to like updates for ColdFusion, you'll see the updates that have been there in the past and the current one.
Yes.
They will actually have the bug ID and what was fixed and all that.
Well, maybe with this incredible GraphQL and other things, you can kind of integrate your internal Jira bug system with the tracker at Adobe and automatically update it. What are thoughts?
Yeah, it is actually integrated into it is Jira. It is
one way. It's not the other way.
Yeah, it's one way, and it's also using Angular, which I don't know who in our group actually knows Angular, but it was done this way years and years ago because Tracker is actually not just a CF thing. It's for multiple products. It was just something that
I
Adobe
understand.
did right. So unfortunately, I think there's only 2 products left in it that are still valid. I think RoboHelp and ColdFusion are the only ones. Like Lex was in there, that one's gone.
Yes.
Air was in there, that one's gone. Flash was in there, that one's gone. So yeah, there's been a lot of talk about updating it, upgrading it, fixing it, improving it. I think right now what we've done is we've set a team on getting in and fixing some of the most egregious things that people are complaining about, where like things are not updating for them. They're not getting emails when updates occur. And some of that, there's some things in there that we have to fix. So like, to give you an example of why this happens occasionally, let's say you put in a bug for a particular language feature. I find a different example of it. So we both find it at the same time, which surprisingly happens more often than you would think. We both put bugs in. What will happen is my bug or your bug, whoever was the first one, will get merged in to the other bug. That merge removes the active state of that particular bug, but it doesn't send you something that says this was merged with someone else's thing. Or it doesn't have that feature. That's not a thing that's built into it. So what ends up happening is if yours was the one that was merged, you'll come back and go, where's my bug? What the hell? Where'd it go?
What's this app written in?
Right? Yeah. What the hell is this written in? Right? This is terrible. And it's frustrating because then you're like, well, what the hell happened? And then, usually what could happen is then you'll email me, I'll look it up, I'll find the old one because it keeps the stub of it, and it'll say merged into this one, and then I'll open up that one and send you the link but I have to do that manually.
This app needs refactoring or rewriting in ColdFusion 2023, I would recommend.
Jira needs refactoring too.
Oh, Jira needs refactoring as well?
Jira. Yeah, you know Jira, right? You're familiar with it.
I do know it, actually. Yes, I have several bottles of aspirin that I've taken due to Jira. So, I mean, it's full of useful features. It's just a bit like Microsoft Word. They just kind of packed too much in and didn't kind of clean it up. And
you know what you're doing. It's mostly usable. But
yes.
Yeah, things go horribly wrong too easily in it.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the annual release cycle, because not everyone listening may realize that ColdFusion has switched to an annual release cycle. This was announced last year. I think Kishore shared that information in a podcast with us. That was where that was publicly announced. And so that means we're going to have a ColdFusion 2024, ColdFusion 2025, 2026, and so on.
Yes.
And we don't know an exact date of the release because it depends on when the code is ready to ship. You're not going to ship it early just to meet an arbitrary marketing date. But I'm going to
gotta be ready.
hazard a random guess based on all prior releases that prior to CF Summit in Las Vegas in October, I expect it either will have been released or the features will be well known.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee, or there will be a lot of yelling from the evangelist at a particular team internally. We will have CF24 at the summit for our fine customers to take a look at, and fingers crossed, we will announce the beta there, and you'll be able to sign up. That's my hope.
This is in April, right?
I'm sorry. This is in Vegas in October or September. Yeah, later this year. Yeah. So later this year in early fall, whatever that would be, late summer, early fall. When we're in Vegas, we will actually have, we'll have a booth. We'll have CF24 running on it. You'll be able to play with new features, take a look at it, talk to the engineers about the new stuff out there, and try it out. And then hopefully we'll open up the beta for people to come in and actually try it out and try it and play with it. That's my hope. Definitely a beta. I'm still like, we need to be ready to have the beta build, right? So if that happens, it'll happen. I hope so, because that's pretty late in the year. Occasionally stupid stuff happens, as you well know, but everything else being equal, we'll have that. So we're releasing yearly. And
why was that? Why was the benefit of having yearly releases for us ColdFusion developers and CIOs?
It allows us to keep up with changing tech. That's a thing that's been that's just been going faster and faster and faster. Is every single year, I feel almost like every single month, there's some new technology, there's some new framework, there's some new way of doing things, a new pattern, something that affects ColdFusion developers. And having a new version every year allows us to actually be reactive and in some cases proactive in providing, those features to folks. It's just really important. Now, it sucks for the development team because, good Lord, those guys are working really hard to try and make the deadline. I mean, they got half the time of the
less than half the time. Some release cycles were 2.5 years.
Yes, so it's been pretty rough on them. But we've also improved a lot of our internal processes. We've made everyone more efficient. And it's going to be a great release. Like, I'm really excited about 24 coming out. It's going to be great. And that's really the big thing. I mean, a great example here is AI, right? And not to say that we're necessarily going to didn't
publicly exist until January of last year, right? And then it snowballed throughout the year. It's now a critical feature to have access to, and you can access that from ColdFusion, as some of your talks have shown. So
yeah. So I just read something outrageous. 77% of the companies out there are using AI in some way, up from 0% in 2021.
What an adoption curve.
The adoption curve has been vertical, basically. I mean, it's been a totally wild ride. So not everything is like that. Obviously, AI is a little bit Wild Westy right now and crazy, but we felt like a 2-year release cycle was just not providing the value and the agility that we needed to service our customers out there.
Makes sense.
And it just kind of makes sense to have everyone out there. And of course, Kishore likes it because he's got something new to talk about every year.
Well,
marketing people.
There you go.
I'm in marketing, so I can joke. I can joke about it because I'm part of his team.
You have a foot in each boat, marketing and development.
I do.
So now let's wrap up by asking, it's 2024. Why are you proud to use ColdFusion, Mark?
ColdFusion is responsible for my entire career. Like, it was the first language that I really learned. It was the first language that I used professionally, and it made me the person that I am today. Now, I learned 13 other languages since then, and I have professional experience in all of those. But I always go back to ColdFusion every single time if I need to do something, even if it's in another language, which drove my other bosses crazy. I actually was a C# developer at UC Davis for a little while. I was in a group that just did C# development. I did my prototypes in ColdFusion because I could prototype something, get it in front of users, and get feedback on the actual experience and workflow in hours or days versus days or weeks in C#. And even my manager was like, because the first time I did it, he goes, "What are you doing? Why is this in ColdFusion?" And I'd be like, "Because it's running."
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're seeing the app. Like, go ahead and use the app. It's real. It works. He's like, "Holy crap. I told you to do this like 2 days ago. How is it up?" I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." That's what ColdFusion does. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't get him to then be like, "Well, maybe we should all develop in ColdFusion," because I was the only person there that knew it. And so he's like, "Well, because he actually copped to the fact, he's like, "Okay, I will admit this is an amazingly fast development. Like he couldn't do that in C# as fast as I could do it in CF. However," and he made a good point, "if I left, which I was going to because I was a contractor, they would all then have to learn CF." And he made the same argument for Python, because we actually, I built I started building, and then another friend of mine, a contractor, came in and built a Python text importer, because Python's super fast. They actually refactored it back into C# because nobody there knew Python. So, which to me is just like, well, you guys should be polyglots, right? Why don't you all learn multiple languages? But that's not
I
fair.
think everyone should know at least 2 or 3 languages, just because even if you're not going to code in them every day, it gives you insights into how languages work.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%. I think that's totally true. And I continue to learn new ones as often as I can.
It's fun. It's fun. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes it gives you insights. And in your position as the ColdFusion tech evangelist, it gives you like ideas for cool things that could be added to ColdFusion. So,
Well, and it helps me talk to teams that are doing other things. Like I'll come into a group that's doing C# or Python or PHP or whatever. Mm-hmm. And often they'd be like, "Well, this is like, well, you don't know what you're talking about," but I do. I've developed huge applications in all of those languages in the past. I know what I'm doing in all of them, and I prefer ColdFusion, and here's why. So they actually can respect that. So yeah, it's that's kind of why that's where I come from. I'm proud to do it, and the community is so amazing. Like, it is just every time I interact with the community, it's just like, I don't know, it's rainbows and unicorns and puppies and ice cream and sprinkles. Like, it's just everyone is so happy and supportive, and like, we're trying to grow. And that's something that I wanted to mention too. You're one of the amazing people who continues the whole CF Alive thing. CF is not dead, right? And I am watching from my sort of unique perch as it's really growing. It really is. Like, there's more jobs in ColdFusion than I think ever before, or at least a decade, right? I actually saw there was one of those like learn how to hack, learn how to code things that came out in ColdFusion. It was a CFML one. They had 40 something lessons in CFML. I had nothing to do with it. I was blown away when I saw this. I said, "Who the heck is doing this? This is amazing." And I went in there, and sure enough, you could go and you could take a course and learn like how to program in CFML. I had not.
That's great.
Yeah, I had not done anything about that. So just by itself, organically, it's growing. People are becoming interested in it. I run several like startup and programming meetups here in town. I run one that's like a social for all the different programming groups in Sacramento, where I live. And I'm having junior developers for the very first time come up to me and be like, "Tell me about ColdFusion. I keep hearing about ColdFusion. You're like the ColdFusion guy. Like, what is it? Why should I learn it? Should I learn it?" Right. And this is, usually I had to like butt my way into those conversations, like, "Hey, have you ever considered ColdFusion?" Right. They're coming to me for the first time ever. Like, it's actually kind of happening. So it's really a wonderful thing. Yeah. It's I kind of feel like I don't know if we're going to have a Python moment or not, but Python's older than CF. That's something that a lot of people don't know. They're like, oh, I like modern languages like Python. I'm like, Python's ancient, right? But it had a renaissance because of data science and all of that, right? And I feel like that same sort of thing is happening with ColdFusion. People want simpler, more efficient ecosystems to develop in. And CF is that. It really is. It's easy to pick up. If you know JavaScript, you're already 80% of the way there. Like I can grab a JavaScript developer off the street and have him doing CFML in a couple of weeks and pushing production.
Is that something you do in Sacramento? Drive around grabbing JavaScript developers off the street?
I do. I have a lasso in my new Subaru, right? That's why I got a moonroof so that I could like pull the moon.
Well, pretty much any full stack developer knows JavaScript,
right? And that's the amazing thing. And yeah, that's another thing. People are like, oh yeah, I heard about that. It's got these weird tags and stuff, and I'm like, fair, okay. We do have the weird tags, but we also have CF Script, which is a fully modern, like it looks like JavaScript, folks. Like, and on top of that, by the way, you can just code in Java if you want. So if you have a Java shop, your Java devs can come over and do a little bit of Java inside of the CF, and it just compiles down to the same stuff. So yeah, it's super flexible. I don't need to tell you, all these things, but
you need to tell the audience. So now, what would it take to make ColdFusion even more alive this year?
Yeah,
what's great things there, but is there anything else anyone listening could do? Or
yeah, I mean, I think if you've never tried ColdFusion, try it. That would be a big thing. And if you want to learn how, reach out. I'm super, super reachable. Talk about how you can get a hold of me. But I've got tons and tons and tons of great learning, like free resources to learn ColdFusion. And really just kind of go out and look at our resources. Take a look at the community and see what we're doing, because there's a lot of really wonderful things that people are doing with CF. I mean, the whole US government runs on CF. A lot of huge companies run on CF. Like it's a little bit of a hidden gem, to steal something from Charlie, but it really is. It's this sort of under the radar language that's been around forever and is fully modern, but you don't really hear about it because the people who use it most are not allowed to talk about it. So I think talking about it is really the first step. Go out there and do a talk on it at your local meetup, right? If you're a CF dev, maybe skip dinner one night with the family and go and do a meetup. Meet your local dev folks and tell them about how cool CF is. I mean, I do. That's what I do. My JavaScript meetup, I always sneak in every few months. I sneak in a CF talk, right? I'll use the, I'm doing an HTMX talk, or I'm doing a talk on Alpine, but what's the back end? It's CF every single time. And I show them all that code, and I show them how easy and quick it is. And every single time you see those eyes light up, right? They're like, oh, I could figure out how to do that. That's super cool. That's super easy. Right. And then they ask, how do I get it running? Where do I go to? And I'm like, let me get you some info.
Yes.
Get you going. That and education too, I think, is the other side of it. And that's something big that we're working on. I think there's going to be a few big announcements at Summit in DC. Watch for those that are going to sort of change a lot of the ways that people learn how to use ColdFusion. So a lot of exciting things kind of on the docket here that we're buttoning up and getting ready to announce. So yeah. Are you going to be in DC? Are you going to make it up?
I'm not this year. No, I don't think. But I'll try and make it to one of the events.
Yeah.
And of course, the Into the Box event's happening in DC this year as well. So
they are
May. So you got I think CF Summit's April 24th, I want to say. And
yeah, we're warming it up for
the box, I want to say, is the 6th, 7th, 8th of May. So if you're in the area, that's a lot of ColdFusion to goodness to receive. But speaking of CF Summit East in Washington, D.C., what are you looking forward to this year?
Oh, boy. So that's one of my... so I love both of the summits for different reasons. Of course, Vegas is just kind of a circus, and I'm a circus freak. So hey, truth in advertising. But what I love about DC is it's a smaller event, and it's just really sort of an intimate chance for developers to net without all of the hubbub and craziness and gambling and smoking and whatever crazy stuff that goes on in Vegas, which you just can't escape no matter where you're at. It's such a big venue there. DC is small and there's less of us there, but we're also in this kind of like tight group. We actually have our own conference center. Like it's just us this year. There's no other people going on. It's a very small space. We're in the headquarters of one of our partners. They've got a full conference facility and they're just giving it up for us this year.
Ooh.
So it's going to be super cool. Yeah, we're not at a convention center or a hotel or anything like that. So there's no distractions. You can just hang out. You know that the person standing next to you is someone who is in ColdFusion, for sure. And that really drives this openness about being able to just talk about stuff. Right. It reminds me a lot when I go to gaming conventions. I'm a gamer, clearly. I've mentioned it like 10 times. But when I go to gaming conventions, I love it because I can go there and I know if I say something totally off the cuff about Diablo or WoW or one of those, the person is likely to know what I'm talking about. And that's a whole other way of thinking. It's the same way in DC. That person next to you will probably know whatever trouble you're having with, serialization speeds or whatever it is that you're having issues with. Maybe they even solved it, right? You can actually get information from them. You maybe can work together on a project or whatever it happens to be. And if you're in the government, which a lot of those people are, the person standing next to you is probably also in government. And that's another thing. Those people are often siloed. The people in government don't get to talk to each other very often. Here, we're giving them an opportunity to do that. And I love, love, love to see that. It's a way of building community that really doesn't exist nearly anywhere else. So that's really my main thing. Just getting to see people and be with them in that space. And,
I think it's well worth going to. What's the cost on Adobe CF Summit East?
It's pretty high. Yeah, that's the only problem. It's $0.
Zero. Wow. Totally free. And
Totally
is it in
free.
Washington DC? Is it actually in Washington DC or?
It's in it's a little south. It's in Ralston, Reston, maybe Reston, Virginia. Yeah, so it's a bit
but
south.
that's on the metro. So I think
It's on the metro. It's super close to the airport. It's like
yes, that's another advantage.
it's very close. Yeah, so there are, and by the way, there's a couple of things happening right next to each other. So on the 23rd, there's a certification training. So if you are interested in becoming a certified Adobe professional in ColdFusion, you can take the day-long class and then try your luck at the end of it if you want to do it. I would suggest if you've never done ColdFusion, you're probably not going to pass. Just throwing that out there because a couple people have tried that and I'm like, no. This is a real certification. You got to know what you're doing. And you probably should be pretty good at object-oriented programming too. Just throwing that out there. But the class is rock star. We've got Brian Sappe teaching that class. Yeah, he's one of the best instructors really on the planet.
He's a great guy.
One of the premier developers, period. Out there. And so that's worth the price of admission there. So that class is $99, which again, for a full day class plus certification, that's a dirt cheap.
Yes, what a deal.
And that includes breakfast and lunch too.
It also includes about 24 hours of videos you can watch it before you do the certification. So
yes,
the actual day you're there to, you get training and you can ask as many questions as you want. And then you can take the test and you get a cute logo to stick on your LinkedIn profile.
You also you get access to those videos for a year after that as well. So if you want to go back and just refresh things and figure out, how did you do this thing? It'll actually be there. So I highly recommend that one. So that one's $99. The actual summit itself on the 24th is free and also includes breakfast and lunch. So heck of a deal.
Free and a free lunch?
They say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but sorry, it's free. Yeah, it's included. So yeah.
Wow. And I
so worth it.
imagine there probably will be people hanging out at local watering holes afterwards, is my guess.
We're hoping to have some kind of event. We're planning one. I don't know that we've exactly decided where we're going to do it, because there's a few spots in Reston that we could go and hang out at. But yeah, there will be plenty of opportunities to network. That's guaranteed for sure. Lots of great talks. We've got wonderful talks lined up from folks in 2 tracks for the full day. So definitely worth it. We've got Sharvi Dute. So she is our product manager for ColdFusion, and she will be talking about all cool new stuff that they're working on, stuff that's going to be coming out in 2024, and getting some feedback and information from the crowd. So if you want to help build ColdFusion and make it awesome, you can go there and talk to Sharvi. So she would love to hear from you.
Excellent. Yeah. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us so much about Adobe ColdFusion 2023. It's quite amazing how much is in there. I didn't even know everything that was added in until you told us. So, and I've been reading articles on it for 18 months. So,
happy to help.
There you go. Yes. Now, if people want to find you online, what's the best way or ways to do that?
So the easiest places to get a hold of me, honestly, are the 2 best places that I'm always at are LinkedIn. So there should be a LinkedIn link that I posted to you, or they can just search for Mark Takata. Pretty easy to spell, and I'm the only one at Adobe with that name.
Yes.
And the other place that I'm at constantly is the CFML Slack. So that's a place that I'm sort of always on, especially in the Adobe channel. If you ever need to, DM me or whatever, both of those ring my phone. So please don't bother me at 2 a.m. unless something is literally on fire. But I probably will answer a thing that early, and I have for some folks. But yeah, those are the 2 main places. And then of course my email, takata@adobe.com. Happy to get email from everyone and anyone about whatever you have questions on. If I need to connect you to somebody internally to answer, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, those are my main ones. I'm also on Instagram, but it's mostly pictures of like my dog and me running, which nobody wants to see.
All right. Very cool. Well, really appreciate you coming back onto the show, Mark, and wish you the best of luck with your talk at the CF Summit Online that's happening right now, and at CF Summit East in in Reston, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure seeing you again and being on here, and happy to come on as often as you want me on here.
This podcast is brought to you by TerraTech, the ColdFusion experts. Develop, secure, optimize. Get detailed show notes on today's episode and your free CF Alive Modern ColdFusion Guide at terratech.com. That is TERATECH.com. And now back to today's show.